I just knew you were gonna come back for the second part. Anyways, welcome back to the second part of this video, and let's see how this one turned out. This is always the most exciting time of a project, especially when you're doing a concrete mold. Now is the time that you can see if all the work that we've put in is actually paying off. For this project, I let the concrete set for about 3 days before opening the mold again. But it's much better to wait at least for a week or 2 weeks, then you're sure that the concrete is hardened out enough. Looking at the concrete plywood and the wooden corner pieces, there's actually very little concrete sticking to it, so the olive oil did a pretty decent job, I would say. And it's environmentally friendly, so it's a win-win. The central tubing appears to be relatively clean, and the little bits of pieces of concrete residue that entered via the holes is going to be cleaned out, as it might damage our parasol. The biggest advantage when you're inserting the plugs when the concrete is still wet is that you don't have to use any power drills and you don't have the risk of your concrete cracking. If you have to drill afterwards, then I recommend that you don't use the hammer setting, because you will damage those corners. Now that we have installed our plug and play casters, it is time to flip the whole thing over and remove the final parts of the mold. For this, you want to make sure that you have an extra pair of hands, because it is quite heavy. Remember that I used this inner tire of a bicycle to cover up the inner hole of the central tubing, and now it should become very clear why I used it. To remove the rubber, I'm just using a pair of pliers, a little bit of elbow grease, and now we have enough clearance to easily demold the product. With an old pointy knife, I'm removing the silicone sealer by gently scratching it away, and this will reveal the small radius that we've created in the silicone. Overall, I'm very pleased with the results of the concrete. There's a couple of air bubbles left, but that's fine for me. Even in the more critical areas like the sides and the corner pieces, you can see that the concrete is evenly spread out and dried up nicely. Okay, so quick ninja tip here: if you're planning to do something similar, then I recommend to use very fresh cement. And for this project that you see right now, I've used cement that was laying around for a couple of months, and the drying times and the way that it's plastified, it's just completely different and it doesn't work that well. It turned out to be still usable, but the intention was to make it look a little bit nicer than this. As you might have noticed in my videos, I like to work on flip-flops. If you're wondering if that's a smart thing to do, then the answer is no. Now, this looks a lot worse than it is, and it actually didn't hurt that much.
Quite a few teardrops later.
To remove the plastic tubing from our product, I'm using a bit of waste tubing that I have left and a rubber hammer. Gently tap it till you're halfway, and then with the screwing motion you can just pull out both parts. It's best to use this plastic tubing as it's dirt cheap, you can reuse it and it will give you the best results. In the previous project I thought I was going to be smart using a drafted piece of wood, assuming that it would loosen up really easily from the mold, but I was mistaken. Here you can already see that there's a little gap between the concrete and that piece of wood. That made me think that it would be easy to remove it, but even after using screws and a crowbar, it was just completely stuck. So I ended up destroying a couple of drill bits and I had to drill everything out manually, which was a ton of work and set me back several hours. For the handles I'm using a polypropylene ship rope, and this is completely recyclable and very durable. You could opt for something natural like hemp, but from my perspective that will create more problems than it solves. To fixate the handles you will need 2 pairs of bolt clamps and a broken wrench. Make sure it's a broken one, otherwise it won't work. First I'm fixating the shortest part of the handle, and then once this is fixated I can nicely arrange the length and do the other side as well. Now comes the coolest part, as we can play with a knife and some fire. The knife and the torch, they had an argument. That turned out in a heated discussion. Since the torch is kind of a hothead, the knife got burned. Ah! When you are about to heat up your knife, always do this in a well ventilated place and make sure that your knife has a plastic handle of some kind. The plastic handle will work as an insulator, so you won't burn your hands while using it. Since the rope I'm using is made out of polypropylene and the knife is hot, it will slide through like a hot knife through butter. Since the plastic is already melting as you are cutting, the rope will not have a chance to disentangle. To finish everything off, I'm using the same hot blade to give it a final rub and melt everything together. After cutting, the other end of the rope is also ready to be used and you don't have to worry about any disentanglement. The other cool thing about this hot knife cutting technique is if you made a mistake, you can easily lengthen the rope again. If only life was so simple. Alright, with the handles installed, it is time to finalize our product. Here I'm installing a bolt that will prevent the parasol from sliding completely through the tube. Just a couple more things and then we are done. First off, I'm going to install this metal clamping mechanism that came with the parasol tubing. And then in the back you see an electricity gutter that I found in a hardware store. I'm using this plastic cable cutter because the central tubing of our parasol foot has a relatively sharp edge. This is exactly where a wear edge will occur on your parasol tube, and this is also the place where it will break off first. So in order to protect it, that's why I'm using this plastic piece. The only thing that is left is to install this clamping mechanism and we are done. So there you have it. This is how you build an easy to use concrete parasol foot. Now I'm sure you like this video, and if you say you don't, it's normal. The first phase is always denial. But since you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos. See you in the next one.